Very good.
And then Pup Copper.
I am gonna talk about leather, and I've organized my thoughts. I have lots of thoughts, so to keep them organized, I've organized them into two components. I think it'd be helpful for me to give a brief history of myself. I'll keep that short, but then I'm gonna talk about leather from a bottom-up perspective, which I see as material first, and things from a sensory material perspective. And then I'm going to talk about leather from a thinky perspective, which is more about the moral and history components that resonate with me. My name's Copper.
Hi, Copper.
Hi, I'm a hound dog.
I'm not surprised by that. You act like a hound dog?
Well, there's a lot to that, but I can't go on too many rabbit trails or I will talk forever. I say I'm a copper, I'm a hound dog, because Fox and the Hound, his name was Copper. That's not why I'm named Copper. I was Copper before I realized that. But when I rewatched Fox and the Hound, I realized that it's a gay allegory. It was written by gay people for gay people. It's about this fox and this hound who become close friends, and society tries to tear them apart. And it ends in tragedy with him going and living with his wife, and they are alone.
Yep, there he goes.
Without each other forever. Yeah. But that's why I say I'm a hound dog. But I call myself a wild, mystical, Western Arizona leather pup.
Okay, I like that. Me too.
And I'm here to talk about leather. I was a kinkster before I knew that I was specifically a leather kinkster, but my interest in leather originated long before I knew that I was a kinkster. I recently have started to understand that I'm autistic and always have been. I have not been formally diagnosed, but it is becoming so unbelievably obvious, and self-diagnosis is valid. My therapist and I say that the strategies that work with people for autism work really, really well for you. So that's where it is. But I've noticed that I am a hypersensitive person, and I think that's why I was naturally drawn to kink. As far as kink goes, I first knew that I was a great sub, and I've noticed that pain play is the thing that I'm most drawn toward. I've been mostly defined first by being I love to get whipped and flogged. I love the marks that it leaves behind.
We need a tag.
Yeah, I love the relationship with the person on top. I love the sensory experience of flying off to that place. I feel so powerful. I don't like to be humiliated. I like to be praised. It feels like a triumphant kind of thing for me. Mm-hmm. I'm a good boy. I'm a good boy through and through.
Yes, he is.
But I do have an alter ego named Oxide. Because when Copper gets wet, it gets a little crusty sometimes, and that's okay. Yeah. But I made all of this. It took me 9 months from the time that I knew that I was Pup Copper till the time that I finished this hood. And I put many, 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 many hours of love and care. It has touched my mental space, my spiritual space, and it was such a physical, meditative process as well. So I'm going to talk about leather through, like I said, the bottom-up perspective, which is about things I learned through experience and intuition. And then I'm going to talk about some of the thinkier stuff, the way that it's stimulating through like moral structures and stuff like that.
Yes, Copper, I am interested to hear about this mask because this is very beautiful.
It's very beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, Copper Pup, you're up. I love the craftsmanship of the copper.
And don't throw the copper ball.
Thank you.
Oh, God, no.
I'm gonna start over here. Start a little bit with history. I came into kink when I worked in some really, really high pressure jobs where I was a designer for political events. It was when Bernie Sanders was running for president. I had a lot of pressure put on me when I was really young, and I was trying to prove myself in a time where the consequences of my decisions had really big repercussions, and I didn't really have a place to turn to. And it was at that same time that while I was out on the road a bunch, I was going to dark, seedy bars and stuff, and I was experiencing kink just from
So you went on the Republican side?
but I ended up finding a lot of relief in stepping into really submissive situations where I could be the person who was not in charge of making any decisions. Somebody else got to make all of my decisions. So that was like my entry point into kink. I always knew that I liked harnesses. I like the sturdiness. I like the look of them, and I just started buying harnesses just because it was. I lead with curiosity. That's why I really liked hearing you say what you said, Nunu, about that you're here just because you're curious.
Yes.
And I love that. I like to think of myself first as a curious person. So I experienced kink through a really sensory kind of place. And then I started identifying a little more and more with leather. I went to the kink festivals 3 years in a row, Folsom, Dorian, Folsom, in, I guess, around pandemic times, 2021, 22, 23. And I really started to see how positive the community of kink is. My last experience at Folsom, I had this joyous moment where I realized how positive everything was, how celebratory it was, and how safe I felt, and how safe I saw other people behaving. And it was just astonishing to me that people have such negative feelings about kink when that's so discordant with my experience with kink. And it was at that festival that it dawned on me that I am Pup Copper. I had tried pup play a few years prior, back in 2019. I had bought a pup hood. It was a plain black neoprene pup hood, and I was calling myself Pup Anubis. At the time, I was masking really heavily. It was before I started to understand that I'm autistic, and I was doing a lot of things in my life that were about erasing my identity to kind of blend in and become a neutral person. I've been in martial arts and in ballet and in theater, and in all of those spaces, there is a practice of finding a neutral identity expression. You wear uniforms, and we practice actor neutral. But I never really connected with pup play when I was Pup Anubis. What happened was at Folsom, I realized that I'm Pup Copper. I was wearing brown leather, and I had specifically made that choice to sort of differentiate myself from all of the people wearing black leather. I'm a Westerner. I feel like a unique, like a unicorn in every space that I go into. And I realized that I want to. I grew up thinking I have no culture, that I'm just a white boy in Arizona. And then in that time, I started to realize that is my culture. I am a white boy firmly rooted in the desert West. And my culture is built from all of my experiences, some of which is white, but a lot of which is firmly Western, but also through indigenous cultures that have influenced my experience and Mexican cultures that have influenced my experience. And Pup Copper, when it popped into my head, it was infused so strongly with identity. Pup play for me is primarily play with identity. And identity changes the way that you feel about yourself and the way that other people interact with you. And I call it avatarization, which is specifically the same kind of thing that people are doing as furries. I think drag is avatarization, where you create a character that's exactly like you want it to be, and then you get to step inside it. The experience of being autistic is forming your identity around other people's expectations, which you're having to do mind reading about, and it can cause you to create a mask that you have to do work to tear away. And at the same time that I was learning that I was autistic, I was also learning who Pup Copper is. And Pup Copper is an identity that I've infused so much of exactly what I think are my shiniest characteristics, and doing that process has been really wonderful. So I realized that I was Pup Copper. This was at a leather and kink festival, and I had such a vivid understanding of who Pup Copper was. I knew that I would never be able to purchase that. If I could find somebody who could make what I wanted, it would be so prohibitively expensive, and I would be subject to all of their design. So I kind of just knew that my only path forward was to make exactly what I wanted. It took me 9 months. I stayed extraordinarily process oriented. And it wasn't 9 months of work every day. It was doing some learning, acquiring a new thing, trying a thing. I did a bunch of prototypes in craft foam because with leather, you can't fix any mistakes. Every time you put a hole in it, that hole is in it forever. Every time you make a cut, you can't fix the cut. You have to scrap it and start a new piece, there's a cost associated with that. Not just a monetary cost, but when I think about the material that is leather, it comes like this. You can't buy 6 yards of leather because there aren't 6-yard long cows.
Okay, so I never thought about it like that. Thanks.
I've been around a lot of vegans, and I understand that being vegan is a morally good choice. I am not vegan, and I feel like if I'm gonna eat an animal, it's part of my moral responsibility to understand that it was a life that was taken. I think a lot of people cope with meat eating by going, no, I get it from a grocery store, and I don't want to see the animal. I want to see it packaged, and I want to see it clean, and I want no blood. And I feel like that's distancing yourself from something that's important, is recognizing that it was a sentient being with feelings like I feel feelings. So working with leather has a cost, not just in the money, but I feel like in making this, I have a reverence for how this material is different from fabric. This material is different in another way, in that fabric is made of strings, and strings have a directionality to the way they resist tension. And somebody who works with fabrics can tell you there's a warp and a weft and a bias. And the fabric moves differently when it's stretched along these different directions. This material is skin, and it is also meshed together as fibers, but they carry a different directionality. They have a different kind of stretch to them, and just like fabric, this was not flat. This was cow-shaped.
Now I'm never gonna not.
And in the process of tanning it, in order to make it flat, when you take a non-flat thing and make it flat, like a globe maker has a problem of how do you deform that sphere into something that's flat. But we had to deform a cow shape into the flat thing. So different parts of the skin have different stretchiness to them. And some of the parts, in order to be made flat, were made squished together, and those are going to have more stretch to them. Whereas the parts that were stretched to become flat have reached the maximum amount of their tension. So you have to feel this thing because it's organic. When you're building something like this, which was the process in reverse, taking a flat thing, the leather, and making it the shape of a face, making it muzzle shaped, making these ears shaped like this, is a process of becoming intuitively aware of the way that this material moves. So that was a profound thing for me to understand by doing, by feeling. That's not a thing that I understood with my thinky brain. That's a thing I understood from my experience and my senses. Okay.
Take a minute. You're okay.
Come in. And it was also from what you felt emotionally.
Yeah, okay. I think that actually is a good way to kind of focus myself on the next thought.
Sure.
Um, in the process of making this, I brought this to illustrate the number of holes, the number of stitches there are in this. Um, Thousands.
Lucy.
This, um, this is the vest I wear, and in terms of jumping into the emotions of
Did you make that, Pup Copper?
I did make this. Um, this is I had to wrestle with. I didn't earn a vest from somebody else. This symbol that I'm wearing on the back is the alchemical symbol for copper.
Mhm.
The Heritage Museum uses this symbol. If you ask an alchemist about this symbol and about copper, they'll tell you that copper is ruled by Venus. Um, Venus is a goddess of love and care and nurture and femininity. I use he, they pronouns. I've never felt dysphoria by being gendered male, but I have found a euphoria in having my gender removed from the conversation. We don't have to center my maleness for you to see me as another being. So I love being ruled by a feminine god.
So let me interject here. I think you have found your masculinity and your femininity
Mm-hmm.
and joined them together. And I think that's great.
Thank you. I feel seen to have you say that. Pup Copper has an innocence and a curiosity.
Yes, he does.
I lead with curiosity. I've realized that Pup Copper. I want Pup Copper to inspire people to curiosity, and that's because curiosity prevents stigma. You can't have stigma against something that you're curious about. Um, I'm getting a little far afield.
No.
In the process of making this, after you are finished with the design, which is thinky and problem solving, you have to just do the work of making it. And it can become very meditative to just have to make the same stitch over and over and over. I paid attention to making sure that the threads wrapped in the same direction on every stitch.
That would be
That's that
another thing, like a
Is autism? Yes!
yeah, it's autism, but it's also ADD.
Yeah, I think I got a little of both going on.
The squirrel is there.
Yeah.
Yes.
But in the process of doing stitch after stitch after stitch and holding this character in my hand, and I was identifying and doing this process of seeing him from the outside and seeing him from the inside. The outside, then the inside, the outside, then the inside. I was stitching, I fell into a trance. And I could see somebody in the future coming up to me and saying, "Wow, you made that? That's beautiful." And I said, "Yeah, I made it." And they said, "By yourself?" And it came to me like a flood, like a premonition of all of the people who were involved in making this. I was looking at my tools, my FID. I can't mine steel, smelt steel. I did not invent a needle. My mom taught me how to stitch. I learned the stitches from the person on YouTube who is dependent upon the person who coded and invented YouTube and all of the people who work on it. That person gave me that knowledge from somebody who taught them. And if you keep looking back, that knowledge traveled through thousands of people. Through guilds of workers who understand how to tan leather, how to raise the buffalo whose life is in this. All of the people who inspired me in kink are all involved in making this. So it was like a Buddhist out-of-body experience of recognizing the oneness. Did I make this? I was the last person with the baton in my hand to cross the finish line.
It started when a Neolithic man.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, from Neolithic times, the understanding of leather was all of those people were required to make every rivet and every ring. The people who work for Amazon, who shipped it, who drove it, like all of that. So I feel, I think because I spent so much time putting so much of myself into copper, so I see everybody engaging in identity play, and it's so beautiful because I see people expressing their genuine selves through pup play, and I sort of took that same concept and dialed it up to 11. By
Pup Copper,
learning
I adore
leather
you.
work.
You didn't go to 11. You went to above and beyond.
I'm in the stratosphere.
I was gonna say you are the one. You are the uniquest of pups that I've ever come in contact with. You went above and beyond, honey.
Well, I have to share three more things, and I think I can keep these brief. You see these two tools?
Mhm.
This
work wheel.
This one I got because I was seeing people do sensory play,
Mhm.
and it's spiky and it feels interesting when you rub it on you.
It does.
Especially with electricity. Yes.
Hey.
This one I got in my first kit of leather tools. A leather worker who comes to this who's not involved in kink sees it as a tool to create evenly spaced stitches. A kinkster who's never worked on leather does not know that this is this, and the leather worker does not know this is this.
Because that one
I've
has
actually used those to sew someone's mouth up before, so that it's even.
Whoa. I did needle play for the first time. I was a pincushion for the first time recently, and that was a cool experience.
I'm a needle
the
ninja.
Wartenberg wheel doesn't have a rounded handle, so it can be electrified.
This one you couldn't make zappy.
Yep.
Oh, this probably makes interesting sparks, says
Oh,
it.
it does.
Oh, it does. It feels awesome.
The smaller the point, the more stronger the spark.
There's two more things I want to share, and these are not specifically about leather. These are about copper's lore. I want to talk about copper's name, first of all. Copper, one of the first things I say about copper is that copper is it's prized for its material properties, just for what it is. We value it just for what it is. And it is conductive. Conductivity is a measure of resistance to the flow of energy. Copper is prized because it has very low resistance to the flow of energy. As an autistic person, I get highly charged in working with my therapist. I've been learning tools to ground myself. By my nature as a highly, gifted, I've been placed in positions where I have to deal with really high pressure, deal with protocols because there are high consequences to mistakes. And I've learned that if I'm going to go into those spaces where I have to deal with all that energy, I have to learn how to ground it. High energy is not damaging if it has a place to discharge. It's when high energy gets clumped up in these places that it can create the heat that burns. So I
Like Reiki.
Yeah.
Like when you have to go.
Mm-hmm.
I love hearing that you are you engage with massage and Reiki. I mean, if kink is a space of curiosity for you,
Mm-hmm.
that is, I think, coming from that place of just things you're feeling in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And kink can be such a great, safe place to explore those kinds of things.
I'm easing her in slowly.
Slowly. We're trying to help.
Oh no, I'm just saying I'm easing her in.
Brought it here, take this thing.
The very last thing, and then I can shut up because I'm
Oh,
stimulating
no,
myself
no.
into a really big place.
You're doing great.
You are.
You are doing very good.
Very good.
Thank you. We're coming up on my on Pup Copper's birthday.
Now, is Pup Copper going to be 1 or 2 this year?
One.
Oh,
but
you haven't even had your first birthday yet?
no. But it was 9 months of gestation. I think is so interesting.
Okay.
Just like an elephant.
Yeah. So I knew that I was Pup Copper, and then it
Lucy?
took 9 months of work. Hey,
Leave your little sister alone.
be nice.
Go back to bed. Go back to bed.
Lucy,
Lucy, be nice.
Lucy, go.
Bed.
You're fine.
Bed.
Sarah.
No, you know what I'm saying.
He's okay.
Uh-oh, Lucy, you're not listening to Mommy and
Lucy,
Daddy.
I'll take that collar off.
No.
Dinner.
I'm teasing. I won't.
We are coming up on Pup Copper's first birthday, but I want to tell you about when I went into labor.
That's so fun.
So I had on the calendar that I was going to drive to Texas to see the solar eclipse, and it just so happened that kind of just a couple weeks before I was supposed to leave, I had this breakthrough. The last really hard challenge that I had was figuring out how to make this flat shape become the shape of a face. It's a hard problem to figure out. And I tried once and failed, had to scrap it. I didn't know what to do with this seam down on the chin. It requires a really special kind of stitch that I didn't know how to do. I didn't know what stitch I needed, and I didn't know where to find the information. I got so frustrated I had set it aside for a while. And then I was scrolling TikTok one time and it said, hey, add this new stitch to your leatherworking thing. And I saw the stitch and I was like, that's the stitch I need. It's a stitch that's used to join two edges together, and you don't pass through the material. You have to have a special fid that can allow you to create a slice that starts on the top of the material and exits on the side, and then you have to stitch in this U shape back and forth to get them to fit together in this butt seam. So I learned that stitch and got this huge new burst of energy, and I realized that with that stitch I would be capable of finishing my mask before I had to leave for the solar eclipse. And I had in my head, I want to howl at the moon when the solar eclipse is in totality. So I was working and working and working furiously, and I ended up being late for when I needed to leave for my drive to Texas. 15 hours straight through. I didn't leave till the afternoon because I was putting the last stitches in to Pup Copper. When I got out there, I thought I was going to be at an EDM festival, which I've been to a bunch of times before. It's a bunch of young people. They're all dressed as butterflies, and it felt like a safe space for me to wear my pup hood for the first time. When I got there, it was not that. It was a folk. I was on the grounds of a folk festival, and in rural Texas.
Oh shit.
And I was. I was getting my bearings. I like folk music, but that's from like my life as in my conservative family, which doesn't necessarily feel like a safe space to come out as a pup. At that festival, I had a shroom trip, and in that shroom trip, these fears came rushing at me about this radical thing that I was doing with my identity. And one of those things where you like can't come back from it. Once you've come out as a pup, you're out as a pup. I was I had such intense fear that night. And then I heard the music that everybody was playing out, and it calmed me as I went to sleep. The next day, I was hanging out with my cousins. My cousins are in a band that were going to play during the eclipse. They are a band that they call themselves like sun worshippers. So it was really appropriate that they were going to play under the eclipse. I was hanging out with my cousin, and I saw this person who just caught my eye. She was just radiating this energy. She had a really interesting hat. She was younger. She was so unlike all the other people who were really salt of the earth, a lot older than me, and she caught my eye, and I caught hers. And I went and had lunch, and afterward we came back and we just sort of started walking together and talking, and we were hanging out with her and her friends. Her friends had to go, and it was just her and me. And we sat down, and she saw my mask and just like went, was just admiring it so much. And I told her about my experience the night before and how afraid I was. And she told me her experience of coming out as trans in Kerrville, with all of these people that she had grown up going to church with. And she said to me something that it caught me so off guard, and I'll never forget it. She said, "People are so much more accepting of you than they think they are." And it was something that caught me so off guard, because it's something I would expect to hear people saying. People are going to be so much more expecting than you are expecting they are going to be. But it wasn't about that. It was, people are going to surprise themselves about how much they are capable of accepting you. And then the next day, I put on my hood and I went out, and everybody was having positive experiences with me. This old lady her name's George. She lives in a town of 18 people in rural Texas and makes beaded necklaces. I went up to her and she went, "Oh, who's a good puppy? You're a good boy." I didn't have to teach her to behave that way, but that was the magic of identity play. Is she knew that that's how I wanted her to
see
to see me. And then I howled with 80 other people under the solar eclipse. I took my mask off and went to get a drink, and a guy came, big gruff guy, and he was gnome shaped, and had a big beard, and he said to me, "Hey, are you that? Are you that guy out there who was wearing that pup hood?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm Pup Copper." And he said, "I'm Pup Apollo. It's nice to meet you."
Oh, that's awesome!
So I have found that Copper is so well accepted, and that is something that is like so beautiful for me. I'm done now.
Thank you.
Thank you. But before you stop, I want you to put the head in your lap and face forward to you, facing up to you as you worked on it. Now look into the eye socket. That's you. You made that, and you made you, Copper.
My therapist is trying to get me to understand that I talk about Drew and Copper as though they are different people, and he's trying to remind me that the thing that people love about Copper is them loving me.
And I just met you, and same way.
Hey, Copper, I've always seen you in the hood. You know this. I think this is the first time I've seen your face. I see you.
Yeah.
For somebody who's known you for a couple of months, you've seen me around. I see you. Okay?
I think we all do.
And this is my first time meeting you.
You're my baby boy.
Thank you.
Oh, you're shaking, honey.
Yeah, I'm really charged up.
Just like a hound dog.
It's okay. Tell Mama's here. Mama's here.
Poor puppy.
Oh, he's not a poor puppy.
Just
He's a
There he goes.
He's a good
As
boy.
long as you're shaking, but you don't pee, because hound dogs shaking and they pee.
No,
Chopper doesn't. He doesn't have the blue tick. He
I
doesn't.
just need to wag my tail and howl a little bit.
No, he just pees.
He pees.
He doesn't shake, he just
Everywhere.
pees. Gotcha.
He just pees everywhere.